Darkness is not merely the absence of light. It is a living thing, breathing in the unseen spaces of the world. It waits, hungers, and when it finds an opening, it devours. In the remote town of Black Hollow, where the nights stretch endlessly and the fog clings to the earth like the grasping fingers of the dead, something ancient stirs. The people whisper of an old legend, a hunger that once consumed without mercy. They believe it to be a myth. They are wrong. The Ebon hunger has awakened once more. It began with the animals. Livestock found dead in their pens, their bodies untouched yet hollowed from within. No blood, no wounds, just husks of what once lived. Then the sky darkened unnaturally early, the sun swallowed by an inky blackness that no scientist could explain. The people of Black Hollow watched in uneasy silence as a new moon, darker than night itself, loomed overhead. As the days passed, strange occurrences multiplied. Streetlights flickered despite clear skies, and shadows stretched unnaturally long in the corners of homes. The silence grew heavy, as though the town itself were holding its breath. A deep unease settled in, gripping every man, woman, and child with an inexplicable dread. Jacob Lorne, the town's historian, was the first to hear them. Soft voices in the dead of night, slipping through the cracks of his home like the hiss of wind through dry leaves. They spoke in a language older than time, a language that sent shivers through his bones. Others began to hear it too, sobbing in the walls, scratching beneath their beds, whispers curling around their ears like cold breath. The town, once filled with warmth, grew silent, its people paralyzed by a fear they couldn't explain. As the whispers grew louder, strange figures were seen at the edges of vision, shapes darker than night itself, shifting and watching. The townspeople began locking their doors before dusk, peeking through curtains, praying to whatever might listen. But the hunger does not need open doors. It slips through the cracks, through the silence itself. When the first person vanished, no one spoke of it. Emily Carter, a young girl with a laugh like chimes, disappeared from her bed. Her window was still locked from the inside. Her parents, faces hollow with grief, refused to answer when asked what they had heard that night. Then, another, and another. The police searched, but no tracks led away, no forced entry, no struggle. Just emptiness where once there had been life. The fear became tangible. Families huddled together, refusing to sleep, their homes lit by dim candlelight that flickered against unseen currents. Black Hollow had seen hardships before, storms, fires, sickness, but this was different. This was a predator, hunting them one by one. Desperate for answers, Jacob turned to the oldest records of Black Hollow. Buried beneath layers of dust, he found a diary belonging to a man named Elias Crow, dated 1794. The entries spoke of an entity called the Ebon hunger, an insatiable darkness that fed on life itself. According to Elias, the town had once fought it back with a terrible sacrifice, a price paid in blood and silence. The warnings were clear: do not speak of it, do not seek it, do not let it wake. But it was too late. Digging further, Jacob uncovered chilling accounts from different centuries, each hinting at a cycle. Every few generations, the town was forced to forget, to erase the knowledge of the hunger so that it could be starved. But something had broken the cycle. Something had called it back. The disappearances quickened. Houses stood abandoned overnight, their inhabitants simply gone. Shadows moved without light, stretching and twisting in ways that defied nature. The air grew thick, oppressive, carrying the scent of something foul, something rotting yet never dead. The hunger did not kill with claws or fangs. It consumed from within, draining its victims of existence itself. Jacob and a small group of survivors began gathering in secret, trying to piece together a plan. They whispered of strange symbols found carved into trees, of doors that led to places that shouldn't exist. Some claimed to have seen glimpses of the missing, faces gaunt, eyes hollow, standing at the edges of the darkness watching. Panic gripped the town. Those who remained tried to flee, but the roads led nowhere. No matter which way they drove, they found themselves circling back to Black Hollow. Calls for help went unanswered. Messages faded as soon as they were sent. Jacob, alongside a handful of survivors, took refuge in the town church, its ancient walls inscribed with symbols he now recognized from Elias Crow's diary. They were meant to ward off the hunger. But for how long? The hunger grew restless. It knew they were hiding. It scratched at the doors, whispered through the cracks, laughed in voices that were once familiar. It was patient. It would wait. It was Sarah, the last surviving member of the Carter family, who made the connection. The hunger thrived on fear, on the voices of those who acknowledged it. The more they spoke of it, the stronger it became. The town had not simply forgotten the legend. It had erased it to keep it contained. Silence was the key. But could they truly erase it now, after it had already begun to feast? One by one, those who faltered were taken. Their screams cut short, their bodies left behind as empty shells. Jacob realized what had to be done. He gathered the survivors and performed the ritual Elias had documented, a ritual of silence. They burned every written record, swallowed their words, refused to acknowledge the terror lurking beyond the doors. And then, one by one, they fell into silence. For 3 days, the town lay still. No one spoke. No one made a sound. The hunger raged, swirling through the streets in search of prey, but found nothing to grasp onto. Without voices to call it, without fear to feed it, it began to weaken. The sky lightened, the oppressive darkness lifting like a veil being torn away. And then, just as suddenly as it had come, the Ebon hunger was gone. The survivors never spoke of what happened. Those who had lived through the nightmare left Black Hollow, vowing never to return. The town itself fell into decay, abandoned and forgotten. Over time, new travelers arrived, drawn by the mystery of an empty town frozen in time. They whispered of ghosts, of eerie silence, of shadows that moved on their own. And as their voices carried on the wind deep beneath the earth, something stirred once more. The Ebon hunger was patient. It would wait. And when the time was right, it would feed again.